On the Republican side, what's the expectation here? How high on the agenda is a relief funding bill for Texas?
I think it's very important. I would place it at the top of the agenda, and we want to make sure that our friends and neighbors in Texas and indeed in Louisiana receive the funding that is necessary. I was heavily involved in the Sandy funding because that affected New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. I think it was a responsibility of the American people then. I think it's a responsibility of the American people now, David.
Swirling around all of the conversation about relief aid for Texas is a conversation about Sandy. There was some politicization there of that conversation then. What have we learned about how the federal government approaches disaster relief since that conversation was taking place a few years ago?
I don't want to look back. I want to look forward, and I think that we have an obligation as a society to help those in Texas and Louisiana. And I also think that this is a responsibility of the federal government, so I don't think necessarily there has to be an offset. I think it's a responsibility of the federal government to fund the common defense, and we don't talk about offsets regarding defense spending. I don't think necessarily we should talk about offsets regarding funding for FEMA and related activities to these natural disasters. Let's hope, David, there's never another natural disaster, but that, of course, is unrealistic. There will be somewhere, someplace in this country, and the American people have an obligation to help those in need.
There was a speech yesterday from the president. He'd taken some criticism for not saying much or enough about tax reform. He again spoke about it yesterday. What did you hear from him? What are you waiting to hear from the group known as the Big Six? 4 of your colleagues on the Hill and 2 members of the administration. What would you like to see them produce here, presumably in these next few weeks?
I think we need tax reform. I'm not sure it can be done by the new fiscal year, October 1st. As you know, the last time there was major tax reform, it took 2 years, 1985 and 1986. But I certainly think that this Congress should produce a document related to fundamental tax reform. What I would like to see is a lowering of the corporate rate from 35%. I think 15% might be aspirational.
The president said yesterday.
He said 15%, but I certainly think we need to lower the corporate rate. We need a territorial system so that we can be competitive with other industrialized nations. That means if profits are earned abroad, you pay taxes abroad, and then you can bring those profits home to create strong new American jobs.